To Games with Tim and Jeff. I'm your host, Matt Stoker, and these are our lovely panelists, Tim and Jeff.
Hello.
Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Tim Fowers, made some board games, Paperback, Burgle Bros, Fugitive, and excited to be here.
I'm Jeff Beck, also a game designer. Also made a few games like Word Domination and Hardback.
Great. So today we're going to be making a game based on either a movie or television. And we have a nice little hat here to choose some predetermined movies and or TV shows that we will be making a game from. And so what will happen is, I will pick the movie or television show out of the hat, and I will tell it if we're not familiar with that show or movie, I will explain it, give a synopsis.
Probably should do that regardless, just, for the audience.
So we're going to be doing that, and then Tim and Jeff here will be making a game.
Designing
a game.
We're not going to build.
We have a printer in the back. We're just start manufacturing.
Yeah. We're going to be selling to you.
Yeah, it's QVC.
So
that's right. Until now.
That's what's going to be happening, and so let's get into it.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so we have the hat here. Let's see what we got. Oh, brother, where art thou?
What is this movie you speak of?
So, Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou is a film made by the Coen brothers, and it's about the story of 3 prison inmates who escaped from the chain gang and go on a wacky adventure, which, spoiler warning, ends up with them being pardoned, and they wrote a hit song, and they encountered a lot of crazy characters. It's loosely based on Homer's The Odyssey.
How does it end? Spoiler alert.
It ends with the group about to be lynched, and then they get saved by a flood, and the main protagonist, played by George Clooney, reunites with his wife and all his children, and they live happily ever after.
All right. So part of the process that I did for Burgle Bros is we're trying to go through and this movie and figure out where the key moments are, because a lot of your experience with a movie is projecting yourself into that situation and being like, what would I do in that situation? And this is really interesting because it's meandering, mm-hmm. right? It doesn't have a traditional dramatic arc,
right?
So, I mean, there's definitely some magic moments in it that I don't know. It's like a whole movie of serendipity, mm-hmm. right? But it's very, very strong in the story that it tells. So I think certainly there's.
And one thing it does have going for it, it is dripping with theme, right? I mean, you know what the setting of that movie, and it's very clear, and every little element of that movie speaks to that theme.
Yeah.
So you got that.
You got the 1930s Depression era, you got the South, and you have bluegrass music is, a central part of that movie. And
oh man. All right. Okay. Well, and there's a lot of sensitive issues here too, so. But I mean,
the movie doesn't shy away from those sensitive issues.
Yeah.
Right. It's got a whole scene with the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
So just saying.
And they encounter a lot of obstacles along the way. Like you said, it's meandering, and so they meet the Cyclops.
That's why I invited y'all out here for this advanced tutorial.
They get drugged by the sexy sirens.
How to do, ladies?
They meet Tommy Johnson, who's like an archetype for Robert Johnson, the inventor of rock and roll as we know it.
You folks going past Tishomingo?
The smiley-faced guy with all the money.
Cows. I hate cows worse than Capri.
George Nelson, not Babyface.
And they meet the Oracle.
The blind Oracle.
You seek a great fortune, you 3 who are 9 and change. You will find a fortune though it will not be the fortune you seek.
I think an interesting thing about is the oracle, because it definitely begins the quest, right? So if you see this as kind of a quest structure,
Okay.
right? So the oracle giving you some kind of like structure, like being like, okay, this is what you're trying to do, and this is what you're going to have to overcome, or here are some tools that you can use, or something that is like preparing you for the journey, either in information or in like literal tools. And it could be something where you always know what your quest is. I mean, that's kind of like the funny thing about a situation comedy. Like a sitcom literally is either you have the same characters in different situation, or you have different characters all in the same situation.
Right.
So I certainly could see like there is always kind of, we begin with the oracle, and then we go through all this crazy meandering stuff, and we're trying to get to home. I mean, that's the traditional like archetype for Homer, is like you're trying to get home, and that kind of journey, that hero's journey is kind of built in.
Right. You're trying to resolve the various loose ends that are occurring as you're going through this meandering journey.
Yeah, so like Candyland, they gotta start go through the candy cane forest and get to the King Cookie's castle.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
What
we need to do.
the
Candyland.
best game that I know.
All right, start over.
New movie.
Okay, just kidding.
But I mean, okay, yeah. I mean, how is it not Candyland?
But so different than Candyland. When you say a meandering journey, what I feel is that every game needs to tell a different story.
Absolutely.
When you tell, when I sit down to begin this game, and in this game I go talk to the Oracle, the quest that comes out should be different every time.
Yeah.
Right? Unlike Candyland, where it's one, you're on the rails, you're doing the one
You're
thing.
pretty much playing the same game every time you play Candyland.
Playing is a very strong word.
Okay.
Candyland. You are experiencing the same misery every time.
Or I mean, okay, so a whole thing about games like Life, right? People play Life because it is just a narrative generator. Mm-hmm. Like, there's kind of I think the only choice is whether to go to college or not.
Right.
That's the only choice you make in that whole game, is whether to go to college or not.
Over 1 million copies sold.
I think it's a big number. So, but literally, you're just going down this thing to say, it's not even what would I do in this situation, because it's not a choice. It's just like, can I see myself through the lens of this experience? Okay. Right? What is it telling me about myself if I had a ton of kids and then I had my house burnt down and like all the sequence of events happened? How would I react to them? Mm-hmm.
Have you played Arabian Nights?
That's definitely like Tales of Arabian Nights is definitely in this vein, but
so let me talk about that game real quick.
Sure, yeah, it's a good baseline.
Because I see some questioning going on here.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tales of Arabian Nights. Imagine Choose Your Own Adventure, the board game, where the adventure book is like this thick.
Whoa, it was a video game.
Was it originally?
It was a full video game, and they put it into a book.
I didn't know that.
It's pretty nuts.
It's crazy. There are literally like 2,000 choices you make in this game. Yeah. So it's like the exact opposite of life, right? And so how this game works, you have a big board, and you're moving from space to space, and every space has a number, and so you look, there's a sequence where you generate a number, you look up the book, it tells you, and so one person, now I'm going to read you this event that occurs, and now you can choose, are you aggressive, are you passive, do you run away, so there's kind of generic ways to resolve this issue, and then depending on how you answer, we flip in the book, and then we read it what happens to you. Oh, okay. And it might benefit you in the game and give you some skills that you otherwise wouldn't have, or it might hurt you and take money away from you, or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it could be something like that, where we're telling this meandering story, eventually trying to get home, but there's a narrative that is going throughout the story.
Okay.
And there are like certain items you can get, other statuses you can get. Mm-hmm. You can be like, are you enslaved, or are you married?
Right, some of them are good and help you, and in that case, when you come to a decision, there's certain solutions to the decision that you can only answer if you have this certain skill set.
Yeah.
Okay, so, with this game then, because our heroes in the movie encounter a lot of different situations.
Right.
And so you'd have, the mechanic would have to be to, well, I don't know if I'm using that word right, mechanic, but, generate those situations and then address them and then have certain, figure out how to have certain things happen.
Yeah, I mean, the choice itself, each encounter is pretty modular in the sense that you can be like, okay, here's the situation, here's what you encountered, here's your options, right?
Mm-hmm.
That point, I don't think is the hard part. I think that's just kind of a content issue. It's like if you had enough of these different encounters, I think that using the keywords and whatnot as a way to have them bleed into each other, like, this option opened up because of the previous choice or the previous outcome or whatever I made before.
Right.
So first of all, is there anything persistent between these? Like, is it a keyword or whatnot? Or it could be like party members, like, like one person escapes and then you find another person. I mean, a bigger question about all this is this like, this really wants to be a co-op, but I have some alternate options there. So first of all, something to think about in general is what could be persistent between this,
Okay.
and
For that.
and then also like what does victory look like? So I mean, on a map it could be something like you don't know how to get home. You don't know where home is.
Right.
Like there could be something where you're trying to piece that together, right? You're trying to go through these things and get clues. It could be something where it's giving you like coordinates of like, okay, once you've gone through these things, you finally figured out where your wife is or whatever. Now you have to go find her, and there's some kind of like, maybe it's just knowing, or it could be that there is something you have to conquer when you
You
get
have to
there.
beat the boss, who is the new husband, just like in the movie.
And in the
Get
obviously.
kicked out of the Woolsworth.
And stay out of the Woolsworth.
There could be, you could take the different scenarios from the movie and make them into, okay, these kind of these choice situations, and then you could play with the order and make some more and whatnot. I mean, that makes sense, but like something a little bit crazier is the idea of when you're playing like D&D, right? You're cooperatively trying to tell a story,
Yes.
right? What if this was a 4-player game,
Okay.
and one person is the adventurer, right? And the other 3 players are the 3 fates.
We know everything. Past, present, and future. Indoor plumbing. It's gonna be big.
Right? So going back to, I mean, this isn't in the movie per se, but in Greek mythology,
Sure.
the idea of each of these 3 fates are partial DMs of this story. They each have different things. Sometimes a whole scenario will be something they're in control of. Sometimes, and maybe they're in competition, right? Like they're trying to become, they get points in different ways from each other. So almost like Vast, which we have over here, where it's asymmetric. So in Vast, one person is the knight trying to kill the dragon. One person is the dragon trying to wake up and get out of the cave. One person is the goblins trying to kill the knight. And the other one is the cave trying to kill everyone.
Okay.
I mean, that's a fun hook, right?
Yeah.
So having the idea of 3 fates that are together, like, maybe they have to build scenarios in concert with each other, or maybe one plays a card that is like a situation, and then the other ones get to riff off of that. Or maybe they are the multiple choices, right? So it gets a scenario.
One of the fates.
And the 3 fates they have outcomes in their hand, but they have to figure out a reason of...
They have to sell the other player on.
Yeah, they can't say what their card is, but they're going to say, like, based on, if he chooses my scenario, I'm going to play, this is the card that will happen. So like they lock it in, but then they can't say what that outcome is. They have to write a story that will get them there. So if you decide to fight the guy, they have to tell the story of what happens in the fight, and then you are injured or whatever. And so now it's this kind of competitive storytelling where they might be trying to, because they don't necessarily want him to win, but figuring out a scenario where they don't want him to win or lose.
Wonder if it was a little bit of a hidden role game where one of the fates wants him to win, and the other two want him to lose. But he doesn't know which one's which.
Oh, so if he chooses that fate more, he's trying to make the right choice. He's trying to, and so they're trying to be enticing.
Right.
And maybe the good fate only has bad cards.
Right.
So it's like Secret Hitler, like you don't know what the outcomes are. But in the end, the fate that has the most like points wins with the hero if it's the good one.
Right.
If you chose the wrong fate or whatever, maybe you don't. I don't know.
And at the beginning of the game, you could be assigned. You know, you don't get to choose. Like, one fate has one person wants the person to die. One person wants the person to live but not have a full victory, or
yeah, like a sad victory.
And then one fate wants the main player to win.
Yeah.
And then, they're dealt cards that maybe are generic enough, or that can be used for good or for bad, and they'd have to play those. When the
I think there could be a little bit of a matching thing where they can't play any card in any situation. Mm-hmm. Like something on the card has to match something about the scenario.
Symbols on the card or something.
Yeah, and it can but everything kind of has to be good and bad, right? Like if I know that the hero is going to get stronger through taking these bad things that have happened to him. I want him to get them because I know that there's this other thing that's going to help him with later. So they're trying to map out, like over a course of, I don't know, I think 5 to 10 scenarios that you're going to go through, that they're going to feed into something. It'd be tricky though, like trying to get enough matching there, but also just making it feel like this led to this point. But also just having one of the fates looking out for you. And maybe the fates knowing some of the other cards, so they could protect you against, like, oh, choose mine, and I'm going to get you a ring that's going to protect against, I know this card that they want to poison you, but also making it so that the one that literally wants him to die can't like kill him that quick. Mm-hmm. Like maybe have a sense of like, maybe it's just sucks his will. Like, he wants to go on, and eventually he'll get too disheartened. And so he can't die, but he can kind of get this resource drained away from him. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know. I think that the middle one is the interesting fate. Trying to figure out one that doesn't let either fate win, or maybe she wants the other two fates to tie. Mm. Like she, or really close in score. But basically, you get points if he chooses your situation. Right. But you've already locked in what's going to happen. Right. And trying to choose.
And perhaps you have a finite resource of good outcomes and bad outcomes, and everyone has an equal number, right? So now, if I am the fate that I want him to win, and I know that I'm gonna have to put a bad one with this because that's all I got left, or that's the only symbol that matches up. So I still need to make it enticing because it can't be super obvious that I'm wanting him to win. But on the other hand, I don't really want him to pick me because I know I'm going to hurt him in the end. So, a little bit of play on there.
Yeah, and also something that... Okay, so you got the... Okay, I'm just trying to think of like the trust scenario, right? So I have these three people, and you need to get them all incentivized right. Like, is it so this is one thing we do in design. We talk about like user stories. Mm-hmm. So user stories is a situation that could be degenerate or a corner case that's like unfun, right? So what if the guy figures out who the good oracle is? What recourse do the other ones have, right? If he's kind of got it on lock, he's like, this is the good one. I
think we also need to ask ourselves, what is his goal in general? Is it just to go figure out who the good one is and keep winning? Or in fact, is he trying, once he figures out who three are, he wins, that's how he wins the game. And so they're very strongly incentivized to make sure he doesn't figure that out. Because otherwise he wins, they lose.
Oh. Okay. But doesn't the good one want him to win?
Win this, but not the game.
Or what if there's...
She wants him to survive until round 10. But he wins the game by identifying, okay, you're the good witch, you're the bad witch.
Yeah.
What if there was a mechanic put in place that would stop them, like traditional Dungeons and Dragons, I know Dungeons and Dragons too.
And Candyland.
And Candyland.
And that's what we made.
And Exploding Kittens. But, like, traditional Dungeons and Dragons, there's a screen, you know?
Yeah.
And what if the three fates
Are playing their own game.
had to play, like there was his game and then their game, and he couldn't see what's going on behind the screen,
That's cool.
you know?
No, I think they could have a little resource battle going on. Like the good one wants to come in, like they're playing cards. They're playing cards that are defining kind of options or outcomes, and then there's situations where they can override each other's, but they're kind of doing their own bookkeeping.
Right.
Or there's like, I don't know, like Go Fish, or I know in Ticket to Ride, you can. There's a mechanic where you have to pick. You get to pick what color railroads you want because they're up there. Or there's like drawn cards, and so maybe they have to they could see an outcome card and they want that card and they have to do.
What if the fates can see all the scenarios, right? Mm-hmm. They can see there's 7 of them, right? Okay. They can see all 7 of them, and they know the order they're going to come in, and so now they're playing a game about where to put the options on each one, and so now they have more complete information, and so the one that's trying to help you can know the critical ones, and hope that she can put the right things to save you in the right places.
That could make for better replayability too, because then each encounter could be different at each time because you don't know the fates don't know what kind of cards they're going to be getting.
Yeah, but I do like the core of like they know. Yeah, they don't have control over their cards, but they have outcomes they're trying to map to a scenario, and they have to present it as an option. So they have to have 2 pieces. They have to go, this is an option, and this is the outcome, and they have to think through that that story. So if he chooses me, what am I going to say? I'm like, well, yada yada, it happens. Now, if there's a way to even kind of record this when it comes to like building a narrative, it could be something where even after they reveal a thing with like 3 face down cards, and then they each tell which one, Right. Maybe the card actually has slots for the 3 fates. So it can be any card. It's just of these 3. Like maybe it's like player color, right? Because you don't know which one's good or better, Right. So it's like player color, and so they reveal this. But then once one was chosen, then they show the outcome, and then that goes off, and you're kind of building
the whole story.
Yeah.
Right.
How does it make this game? Because that sounds super interesting to me. Like that, this is really, really interesting. And even if it wasn't like Oh Brother Where Art Thou themed, I'd still want to play something like this because I've never heard of any. But I haven't heard a lot of the game. But
it's not like Candyland.
Yeah, it's definitely not Candyland. How do you make it interesting for the 4th player, the guy? Because if he doesn't have some level of control.
He is making the choice.
Yeah,
so he's making the decision.
His control is who do I trust? Who do I think is trying to save me, and who's trying to stab me in the back?
So literally, they're like they reveal it, and somebody reads aloud the scenario. Mm-hmm. Okay, you encounter the sirens by the water, and you're like, okay, and then you play the soundtrack. No, but like it's set up, right? And so he points to the blue player. He's like, blue player, what is your option? Well, you can indulge them, and then red player, what is your? Well, you can run away or whatever, or try to escape, and then the 4th one is like, you can try to use them to your ends or whatever. And they kind of now one problem is that how do they coordinate when it comes to similar outcomes? They'll have to riff, like because they'll hear the first option, and like, oh, that was my intro. Now I've got to make mine a different option that still leads to my outcome through a unique story, and so there'll be a lot of like live riffing. But because they go in order, there won't be duplication. But it'll be fun to see the twist too, to see how you connect the dots from scenario to outcome. But then the outcomes are almost like your bookkeeping. Like this is the outcome. You now have this item or this teammate or this injury or this whatever. And so when they're planning out the fates, they can see like if I have this and this, can the cards combine in some way?
Yeah. So
Right.
have you played? There's a game called Fairy Tale. You played that?
Yes.
So that's a storytelling game where I basically have a hand of cards that have nouns, verbs, whatever, all in kind of a fairy tale realm, right? So maybe I have a king, and I have underwater, and I have a castle wall. And I have to figure out, and now you're telling a story, and I have to figure out how I can interject a castle wall into your story so I can keep telling a story. And so it's all about, I have this element of the story here and this element of the story here, how do I put them together?
Okay.
Right, so that's kind of what we're talking about here, is
Yeah.
like, okay, I know that this is the outcome I need to describe, so how can I get the Cyclops scenario to you're drowning underwater and put those two together?
Okay.
And then, I mean, but those cards themselves, is there any kind of like prerequisite, or is there? I'm just trying to think of like those, you know, like this whole thing where like scenarios feed into each other, right? I mean, they can make up anything, but is there any like actual game mechanic that the cards imbue you with something? Like if it makes you immune to a problem, well, that problem has to be another outcome. And it could be something where it prevents, well, maybe it's in their hand and they were going to do it on the next scenario and they're going to try to poison you or whatever. But now you're protected against that. You've actually just eliminated some of the bad outcome cards.
Right.
So, but at the same time, how the person that's got like the poison protection for you or whatever, how do you not make it so obvious that like, oh, you should choose this one because it's going to give you a magic item, right? How do you de-incentivize that?
So yeah, I mean, I think you just make it a rule that they're not allowed to discuss what the outcome of their decision is.
Yeah, it can't be obvious what.
Like they can sell, hey, this decision is good because you'll appear brave, but they can't say you'll get a magic ring.
And what if you gave the fourth, the
Adventure.
the adventurer? There we go.
That word.
What if you gave the adventurer choices, or maybe before the actual game begins, he can equip like one of these, 5 or 6 cards that, can turn the fates, any of their plans on their heels.
You can change the fate of the fates.
Yeah, change the fate of the fates, like Hercules style.
I could see something where you switch, you do like you have their roles, and then you're like, okay, this is their alliance, and you're like, okay, you two switch.
Right.
So like halfway through the game,
Yeah.
so he can switch. So now maybe the one that was trying to kill him was trying to keep him alive, and then you start to get twists and whatnot. And knowing that your goal might change, you might not be incentivized to overhelp, because if that turns, and it could even be something driven by him, where he gets to choose, you two switch because you're looking super evil, and I don't know about you, or he switched the good and bad so that whatever,
Yeah.
It could be that part of the game they're playing behind the screen actually incentivizes a switch between them that he doesn't even know about. So perhaps halfway through the game, you and I switch. He has no idea we switched.
Yeah.
And so he thinks he's got to figure it out, and now we just threw this.
Yeah. Well, and it could be even something where maybe it isn't even necessarily good or evil, but there's certain color combinations. Like this is my goal card as a fate, right? I'm trying to get a red, a green, and a green, right? I'm trying to complete this card. Maybe I have a couple of them, I don't know, but the idea of I have this goal I'm trying to complete that is hidden or not, right? But he doesn't know. And so, yeah, so that means just, then as he finishes outcomes,
right, it lines up with yours.
Yeah, you'd have some symbol matching stuff going on.
Yeah, and maybe there was a bunch of different cards, and if they completed more cards, then that's how they get points at the end. And so the fate who completed the most objectives, that may be how they win. Especially if there's a switching.
I can see something where there might be requisites on scenarios. Like you can't go into the scenario until you have a red or a blue or whatever, and they can see like 3 things coming up, and so they kind of do a little bidding or whatnot.
Right, because they want to energize basically their. Yeah,
they maybe they each have a scenario they're trying to get out or whatever, and it's kind of based on prerequisites, and so they're trying to get out. It also could be a deck of scenarios that's like 10 cards deep, and he's just trying to get to the bottom of that or whatever. without a particular outcome, right? I mean, maybe the good one isn't trying to get him to live and get home. Maybe one is trying to kill him, one is trying to make him forget, and one of them is trying to like seduce him with like a better outcome. Mm-hmm. But if he knows his goal is home, I don't know. It could be something where...
because it's such a meandering path, he's not going to know this is the obvious path to home.
Yeah.
Right? Because maybe the path to home is through the Cyclops, but that's super non-intuitive.
Or maybe home has requirements on it that you know, they all can see, and they know who's good and evil, and so they're trying, you know, to get to the end, you know, he has to have, you know, these things, and so...
Yeah, he needs the MacGuffins. He needs the ring, he needs this. Because he needs the wedding ring, because that's in the movie.
There you go.
He needs like the wedding. He needs to get the wedding ring.
He needs a hit song.
He needs to get pardoned by the governor, and he needs, you know, to make sure that his friends are okay too, or if it's, you know, because there's, you know, the main guy and then the two other guys with him.
So,
he needs to get baptized in the river.
Yeah.
That's the movie too.
Very important.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if he had some information, like the Oracle gave him, like you're saying, like tell him something about what he needs to get home, or the fates have to tell him something about what's in their hand. Like, I have a lot of green in my hand, which are all around envy or whatever, right? And so they have to tell something about their hands.
Maybe as he's taking outcomes, each you'd have a positive outcome, a neutral outcome, and a negative outcome, but each is feeding his different resources that as they charge up, he can now trigger off, okay, I get Oracle, so I get to see an outcome. You know, one of the three.
Yeah.
Or I have the sire, you know, or whatever those are. And so he's slowly charging up his three different resources, and then as soon as they charge fully, he can trigger an ability.
I can see that. I can see, like, so they're maybe trying to minimize how much they're giving him, but he still gets to choose which one, right? So if he thinks this leads to, it could be something where it's just like, if you think of like character things, like, you know, like bravado, or, you know, or like, you know, tenacity, or like, you know, stubbornness. Like, they could be kind of these abstract things, but every outcome is going to give him a point in one of those.
Right.
And he's choosing, you know, and so but they also could have keywords, or I don't know, maybe the keywords isn't super important. But yes, having those fill up, or and then get to certain thresholds.
And maybe if any one of them fills all the way up, that's how he's now getting home. And so their job is to make sure none of them fill up. You know, they're all going to get to some certain threshold, so he's going to have some abilities as the game progresses. But if any one fills up, they're toast.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Sweet.
All right.
So, you know, package me this game. Pitch me the simplicity of the game, if you can.
What's the one elevator pitch?
Okay. Oh brother, where art thou?
In a world.
Is a one versus many game where three players are working together to prevent a single player from finding his way home through the meandering path of life. A 1930s Depression era in the South life.
All right.
Okay.
I might buy it.
Yeah.
We'd have to see more of it, but
It has to come with the soundtrack.
yeah, it has to come with the soundtrack, guys. No,
It's critical.
so I think that was great, and thanks for joining us today on, what do we call it? Making Games with Tim and Jeff. There we go.
We'll have a
And
better name.
So my name's again Matthew Stoker. You can find me at Stokemasta on Twitter. Tim, where can people find you?
At T Fowers on Twitter.
Great, Jeff.
And you can find me at Jeff Beck on Twitter.
Great.
All right.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.